Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be starting a new chapter in Sacred Contracts written by Myss. And this chapter focuses on the chakras, our spiritual backbone. And if you're not familiar with chakras, you're going to get familiar. If you want to get more familiar for yourself personally, I do have a playlist. I read Chakra Healing by Margarita Alcantara. It's a great beginner's guide, or even for somebody who knows but needs more ideas on how to balance, align, even referring to symptoms that may have something to do with a blocked chakra. It's a really good book to refer to if you want to familiarize yourself with the chakra system even more. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to read the introduction and the first section, which is titled Our Energy Anatomy. And that may be all we're going to read because these are a little bit longer, not terribly, but a little bit. Okay, so chapter 6, the chakras, your spiritual backbone. If one is not oneself a sage or a saint, Aldous Huxley once wrote, the best thing one can do in the field of metaphysics is to study the works of those who were, and who, because they had modified their merely human mode of being, were capable of a more than merely human kind and amount of knowledge. That is why we study the writings of the great mystics of the world's religions and the lives of the masters who founded those religions. The masters and mystics have tapped into the underground stream of spiritual knowledge that flows beneath the bedrock of all the great traditions, uniting them and washing away their surface differences. Through these spiritual guides, we gain access to the collective wisdom that feeds the human spirit, filtering into our psyches, souls, and biology. In a symbolic sense, the teachings of the mystics, based on their own immediate experience of the divine, form our spiritual backbone, radiating out into every aspect of our lives. But there is another kind of spiritual backbone that is related to the wisdom of the masters and the 5 stages of a sacred contract. The system of energy centers known as the chakras defines and supports our spiritual life, much the way the spinal column, along which they are traditionally located, supports our physical body. Like the stages of a contract, they too follow a progression that reflects our spiritual development from childhood through maturity. But in a more literal sense, the chakras are also connected to the everyday functions of our bodies and minds. They regulate everything from our survival instincts, sex drive, and self-esteem to our emotions, intellect, will, and spiritual aspirations. A knowledge of how they function and how they help you to function is essential to a complete understanding of your sacred contract. Now, the next section, our energy anatomy. When I first began doing intuitive readings, the data that I received did not come to me in any specific order. I would sense an emotional pattern and then the physical problem that had arisen from it, but the energy information was not organized. Over time, my readings became more structured and unfolded in layers. First, I would sense an emotion or trauma, then a physical illness or disease. At a certain point, the orders switched, and I saw the physical content and problems first, followed by the emotional and psychological issues, and finally, insights into the spiritual issues. I did not realize that these layers of information followed the natural alignment of the chakras until I wrote The Creation of Health in 1988. Indeed, these 7 centers are like an energy spinal cord through which the life force, or prana, flows into our physical body. Each one represents a different configuration of physical, emotional, and psychological concerns. Eastern religions have determined the spiritual meaning of the chakras in a way that matches perfectly to the psychological and physical information that I gleaned from my readings. To me, the chakras are our energy anatomical systems. In Sanskrit, the language of the ancient Indian seers who first identified these energy centers, the word chakra, pronounced chakra, means wheel or circle. The English words cycle and cyclone are derived from the same root. Chakras are traditionally pictured as lotus blossoms with varying numbers of petals. each inhabited by the energy affiliated with a sacred deity, with the characteristic color, sacred syllable, and animal symbol attached to it. The ancient seers and yogis experienced the energy of the chakras as constantly spinning. I find their function somewhat analogous to that of the hard drive of a modern computer, a powerful disk constantly in motion that provides vast amounts of information while also helping to run other major programs of the computer itself. The chakras concentrate and transform the enormous psychophysical energy that is stored in different parts of the body into spiritual energy and distribute it throughout your entire system. According to the spiritual systems of the East, the chakras ascend in a line from the first or root chakra at the base through the seventh chakra, just above the crown of the head. Between them, in ascending order, the other 5 chakras correspond to the genitals and lower intestine, solar plexus and navel, heart, throat, and pineal gland or third eye. Although each of the chakras corresponds to a different part of the body, they are not material and actually reside within subtle energy sheaths that surround the body, where physical and psychic energies interpenetrate each other. These invisible but highly potent sheaths are levels of psychic energy, are sometimes called the mental, emotional, etheric, and astral bodies, and they extend well beyond the physical dimensions of our frame. During my years of doing health readings, I could sense only the 7 energies of the chakras. When I began to get impressions of archetypal patterns, however, I sensed an additional center that I consider to be the 8th chakra, where our archetypal energies reside. While the 7 lower chakras are largely personal in nature, relaying information that reflects the physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual details of our life, the 8th chakra is transpersonal, connecting to the infinite source of all archetypal energies. It also maintains a connection to every individual body and soul. To get a sense of the activity of this chakra, imagine a 3-dimensional infinity sign. So that's like this, like the 8 that never breaks, whose one arm encompasses and spins through your body and energy sheaths as the other extends out into the universe. Unlike the 7 chakras that are directly involved in your physical anatomy, your 8th chakra is like a Mobius strip that runs between the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, linking the literal and symbolic dimensions, your personal life and the impersonal universe. This Mobius strip represents a continual current of cosmic intelligence that feeds into your psyche. And if you want to look up Mobius strip, the spelling is capital M and then O-B-I-U-S, okay? And now we have here a little diagram of each chakra, including the 8th one, and what the major thing is connected to the chakras. And I don't know how well you can see this, but this is your root chakra. This is your sacral plexus chakra. This is your solar plexus. This is your heart chakra. This is your throat, your third eye, your crown, and then the 8th chakra that the author is introducing to us as of right now. So the root chakra is attached to family and survival. Do you have what you need? Are you provided for? Are you grounded to the earth and to the fellow collective conscious? The second, or your sacral plexus, is connected to money, sex, and power. Even if you're celibate, even if you don't engage in those things, it's so much more than that. But money, sex, and power are the main keywords we're using here. The solar plexus, which you can think of as in the center, like the sun is in the center of the universe, even though it's really not, but that's how I remember it. Solar center is attached to our self-esteem. Then our heart, which is our more spiritual chakra, is connected to emotion, love, and forgiveness, which makes sense. Then we have our throat chakra, which is our will, our choice, and our self-expression. Then our third eye would be our intuition, our intellect, and our wisdom. Then we have our crown, which is our relationship to the divine. And then the 8th chakra that she's presenting here is called the archetypal dimension. And I'm sure we'll learn more about that. Because the eighth chakra contains your archetypal patterns, it is also the home of your sacred contract. In physical terms, the eighth chakra is located about an arm's length above the crown of the head. In the esoteric golden light meditation, Taoist adepts visualize an energy body that appears like one's own body, but made of luminous crystal, standing atop the head and an arm's length in height. The crown of the head of your energy body then would correspond to the location of your eighth chakra. In addition to archetypes, the eighth chakra also holds patterns of experience and soul knowledge that are inherent in human consciousness. The archetypal plane to which the eighth chakra connects acts as a magnetic field that organizes life on this planet as well as in your psyche. Its influences are variously referred to as Mother Nature or Gaia, the natural order of things, or even the law of physics. A wide range of teachers, from classic theologians such as Thomas Aquinas and Augustine to contemporary spiritual writers such as Matthew Fox, maintain that there are natural laws of the spirit that operate within each of us and that need not be taught to us directly. We are born already knowing these archetypal truths, that murder, stealing, and lying are wrong, for instance. We are born with territorial and we accept without question that it is against the law of nature for a mother to harm her children. We are also born imprinted with universal laws such as cause and effect, choice and consequence, or magnetic attraction. These laws are represented as much in physics as in the spiritual laws of karma, and they are part of the collective body of divine wisdom imprinted into the eighth chakra. We may have to be awakened to the presence of these truths within us, perhaps by a parent, mentor, or spiritual guide, but we are bound by them nonetheless. After I sensed the presence of the eighth chakra, the structure and nature of my readings changed again. Now the archetypal patterns came to me first, and I followed their subtle currents into that individual person's energy field and saw them stir the psyche, then move into the conscious mind, the emotional body, and finally enter into a physical manifestation into that person's life. The child archetype and its patterns of vulnerability, for example, to which we can all relate, takes on a more personal identity as it connects to each individual psyche. This was true for Jessie, a young woman I met in a workshop. Her inner child first manifested as a deep-seated fear of living alone, although she was not consciously aware of this reason. She grew up in a comfortable home in a safe neighborhood and had never been harmed or threatened there. So an atmosphere of being both emotional and physical security had surrounded her all of her life. Yet Jessie's inner child held enormous authority over her emotional and psychological well-being. Once she understood that we all have a child archetype at work in our lives, she was able to identify hers in action. Specifically, fears of being kidnapped would overwhelm her when she was home alone at night. As a result, she kept lights on all night long and had a sophisticated alarm system installed. As soon as Jessie got into bed, she felt as she had when, as a little girl, she had waited for her parents to come home. Even with the babysitter, she felt safe only once they were back where they belonged. That sounds very familiar for me. Jessie found it easy to relate her personal fears and behaviors to the aspect of the child archetype known as the abandoned child. Some of the characteristics that are inherent in the abandoned child are feeling as though your emotional needs do not matter to your parents, and seeing the entire world as a place you will never be able to handle alone. The universal archetype of the abandoned child was directly connected to the aspects of Jessie's personal life. That's funny because when I was figuring out my archetypes, I started with child, and that's the one that I honed in on after looking at all of them. This initial insight marked the beginning of a process of self-discovery through which Jessie could approach her fears through her abandoned child, which gave her some distance and detachment as she investigated her relationship with her parents. Asking herself questions such as, what is the symbolic purpose behind these fears? How can you change these fears into strengths? And are there other areas in your life or other relationships in which the child projects its authority? These helped her to sort out her emotions. Jessie realized that she had not been born with these fears, but had developed them as a teenager. They became more intense the older she got, because getting older represented independence and being alone. In fact, her parents had encouraged her throughout her childhood to think of finding a place of her own as soon as she was out of high school, because they felt it was important that she learn how to take care of herself. They also wanted Jessie to become strong enough on her own so that she would not make decisions about her life based on fear. They didn't want her, for example, to get married out of a desire for protection rather than for love. Although Jessie realized intellectually that her parents had wanted her to move out not to get rid of her, but to help her learn to be effective on her own, she was still upset with them. Yet Jessie was able to begin working with that insight, beginning with her 8th chakra and threading it through her 7th, then her 6th, all the way down to the 1st chakra. With each chakra, she investigated her fear of the dark within the meaning and context of the characteristics of the energy center. When she visualized her 4th or heart chakra, for instance, where the emotions reside, she saw that she was really quite angry at her parents. As she came to realize the wisdom of her parents' decision for her, she resolved the anger and with it, her fear. For Jessie, this process opened a door of personal transformation. The abandoned child emerged from its shadow and became a source of strength, reminding her that she need no longer fear the unpredictability of the outside world and the onset of adulthood. You too can apply the chakras to each archetype to help you uncover further indications of your contract. If you feel that you touch on an issue that needs deeper work, I encourage you to seek the help of a therapist or spiritual director. Okay. So what we're going into next is the chakra system. And I'm going to read that. And then the next video, we're going to start talking about our chakras individually, starting with the 8th. And I will try to break that up into about 2 or 3 videos. The chakra system. Each chakra contains information that is essential to your ability to interpret the symbolic meaning of your life experiences. Each also is the center of a power source that you are meant to acquire, such as wisdom in the 6th chakra or self-respect in the 3rd chakra. At the level of personality, these power sources are reflected in strengths, such as intellectual skills for the 6th chakra or self-discipline and courage for the 3rd. Deficits in your chakra energy caused by trauma show up in your personality as weaknesses in your life, as challenges that force you to try to heal your wounds and history. In my previous books, I worked with the chakras from the ground up, from 1 through 7. In the first part of this chapter, we're going to work with the chakras from the 8th down. This is because we're focusing on your archetypal energies, which reside in the 8th chakra. We're going to track each one through its spiritual significance, 7th chakra, and its projections in your psyche, 6th chakra, to see how it influences your choices, 5th chakra, and activates an emotional response that emanates from your heart, 4th chakra. A dramatic shift occurs when this current of life force enters your 3 lower chakras, which corresponds to your self-esteem, sexuality, power, and survival, and finds expression in your physical life. There, your perceptions become instinctual rather than rational and emotional, more reactive, and not particularly concerned with spiritual growth. By observing how the native intelligence of your chakras interacts with the influential patterns of your archetypes, you gain insights into your contract, into how the divine reveals its partnership with you. Also, you see how energy data connect to the physical aspects of your life. Your archetypal energies determine your life patterns, which is another way of saying that your biography becomes your biology. And I think she says that early on in the introduction, so that makes sense. Although we say that each chakra contains certain knowledge or regulates particular activities, it might be more appropriate to say that the chakras resonate energetically with various aspects of your life. The survival stuff of your physical life, such as a car or a house, for instance, resonates to dense reality. While such items are important to your physical comfort, they are not essential to your spiritual development. They resonate with your first chakra, which is your anchor to the physical environment, your root. With each ascending chakra, your individuality emerges along with the specifics of your life that reflect your own spiritual path and your many contracts. Each chakra is a doorway to another energy reality, a means of perception that helps you see your archetypal journey through life more clearly. The chakras resonate with ever less refined spiritual energies as you work your way down the spinal column. For example, the emotional connections you have to other people, which resonate with your fourth chakra, have a far greater effect on your personal development than the kind of car you choose to drive. Each chakra also represents a degree of spiritual awareness and personal power that you need to manage consciously. For instance, it takes a great deal more thought and presence of mind to make the best and healthiest emotional choice for yourself than it does to select the best car. And if it doesn't, you may want to rethink where your priorities are, because if that's the case for you and you're stuck in a very materialistic place, you may not be as happy as you think you may be. For much the same reason, although you are always working with the energies of all your chakras, you confront the issues and areas of your life regulated by your chakras in ascending order as your life progresses chronologically. Later in this chapter, I'll take you through an exercise in which you'll work with your chakras in the more conventional progression from the bottom up. But right now, let's examine their relative strengths from the top down. So in the next video, we're going to start with the 8th chakra, and then we will go down to the 7th chakra. And depending on how long they are, I'm really going to try to do 4 and 4 just to keep it even. I think that I'll manage that. Those next 2 videos may be a bit longer, but that's okay. I don't want to break it up too much if you're following along and you're utilizing these things that you are listening to in this book. So we'll stop right there. We'll pick up with the actual chakras in the next video. And I love you all so much. Until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and I will see you again for the next part of, what chapter are we on again? Thought it was 6, but I think I've been off a chapter when I'm telling you guys. Yeah, we're on chapter 6. Okay, perfect. All right. So I'll see you again soon for the next part of that. And take care until next time. Bye-bye.